He stood watch over America's most sacred monument. His service was beyond question, but when a judge ordered him to remove the Medal of Honor he had earned through blood and sacrifice, everything changed. What happened next not only destroyed his career, but shook the very foundations of his life. The tomb of the unknown soldier is more than just a monument. It is a symbol of everything that is sacred in American history. It represents the countless men and women who gave their lives in service to their country, their names lost to time, their sacrifices never to be forgotten. Among those entrusted to protect this hallowed ground is a select group of men known as the Tomb Guards, a small, elite group tasked with standing vigil over the tomb 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, no matter the weather or the personal hardships. They are the epitome of duty, discipline, and honor. Michael Hayes was one of these guards, a black man with a deep sense of pride. He had earned his place among this revered group not through privilege, but through sheer determination. His path had been anything but easy. Raised in a small town, Michael's journey to the tomb of the unknown soldier was shaped by both hardship and the unyielding belief that his service could make a difference. It was through military training that he learned the art of precision, discipline, and sacrifice. He wasn't just a tomb guard. He was a Medal of Honor recipient, one of the few men in history to have been awarded the prestigious Medal for Valor Under Fire. This was no ordinary man. His courage and devotion to his country had earned him the highest honor, a recognition of heroism beyond imagination. But what most people didn't know was that behind Michael's steely gaze and immovable stature stood a man deeply affected by the weight of his achievements. Every day he carried the burden of not only his own personal sacrifices, but the history of those who had come before him, the soldiers who could never speak for themselves. It was a typical afternoon when Michael was called into the office of his commanding officer. He had just finished his shift at the tomb and was preparing for the next day when he received the summons. He entered the office where his commanding officer, Colonel Davis, stood looking grim. Davis was a stern man, known for his strict adherence to protocol. But this time there was something different about his demeanor. "Sit down." "Hayes," Davis ordered. Michael sat, his back straight, unsure of what was coming next. "I've received an order from the court," Davis continued. "They want you to remove your Medal of Honor." Michael's mind raced. His Medal of Honor was more than just a decoration. It was a symbol of everything he had endured, everything he had sacrificed. It was a symbol of his integrity, his valor, and his commitment to his country. "Sir." Michael's voice was calm, but his mind was spinning. The colonel looked uncomfortable but steady. "Here it seems there's been a legal case involving the actions of a soldier from your unit. The court believes your medal may be an inappropriate symbol to be worn by someone with the allegations that have been brought against your unit. Until this matter is settled, they've ordered you to remove it while on duty." The words felt like a blow to Michael's chest. He had known about the court case, of course. It had been a highly publicized event, the trial of a fellow soldier who had made headlines for actions that, in Michael's mind, did not represent the ideals he stood for. But to tie his personal sacrifice, his Medal of Honor, to the actions of another soldier seemed both cruel and unjust. "I don't understand," Michael said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "I know this is difficult," Davis said, "but it's an order. The court has spoken." The silence that followed was thick with unspoken words. Michael's hands clenched into fists as he fought the urge to lash out. He had given everything for his country, for his fellow soldiers. And now a judge, someone who had never stood at the tomb, was telling him to remove the symbol of his service. The next few days were a blur of anger and confusion. Michael, who had always prided himself on following orders, was torn between duty and honor. He had worn that medal through every difficult moment of his life, each time with a sense of pride and responsibility. Now he was being told that he had to take it off, as though his service was somehow tainted by something he had no control over. He had heard whispers from his fellow guards, from the other soldiers who respected him, but the matter was clear. The court order stood. Michael did as ordered, but each time he put on his uniform, the weight of the missing medal was a reminder of what had been taken from him. His identity, as much as the symbol on his chest, had been challenged. The news of Michael's forced removal of his Medal of Honor spread quickly. The media pounced on the story, framing it as a case of injustice. People who had never met Michael, who had never stood at the tomb of the unknown soldier, now weighed in on his situation. Some supported him, others questioned his actions and the reasoning behind the judge's order. But what became clear was that Michael was not just fighting for his own honor, he was fighting for the legacy of every soldier who had ever been awarded the Medal of Honor. People from all over the country wrote letters, sent petitions, and called for the court order to be reversed. The story became a rallying cry for many who saw it as a violation of everything the Medal of Honor represented. With the public outcry came a formal legal battle. Michael's case was taken up by high-profile lawyers, some of whom had a vested interest in ensuring that the Medal of Honor remained a symbol of integrity, not subject to political whims or legal complications. The courtroom battles were long and exhausting, but they were also revealing. Michael's defense team argued that the decision to strip him of his medal violated both his First Amendment rights and his rights to personal dignity. In the meantime, Michael remained a tomb guard, but every day it became harder to perform his duties. The weight of the situation began to take its toll, both physically and emotionally. His once unwavering confidence began to waver. He had never expected that his career would end not in a battle, but in a courtroom. One evening, Michael stood at attention before the tomb. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the graveyard. The air was still, and the weight of the situation pressed down on him. As he stood there, the thoughts swirled in his mind. Was this the end of his career? Was this how it was all going to end? Not with glory, not with a battle won, but with a piece of paper telling him to remove the symbol of his entire life's work? His commanding officer approached, breaking his thoughts. "Hayes, how are you holding up?" Colonel Davis asked, his voice softer than usual. Michael didn't answer at first. He just stood there staring at the ground. "I don't know if I can do this anymore, sir," he said quietly. "Not like this." In the end, Michael made a decision. He could no longer serve as a tomb guard under the circumstances. His decision to leave the military was not one he made lightly, but he realized that he had given everything for a cause, and now it was time to move on. The legal battle continued, and in the public eye, Michael's reputation remained intact. The court order was eventually overturned, but by then Michael's career was already over. Michael Hayes's journey was one of unmatched dedication, honor, and sacrifice. But when his service was called into question by a court order, his career was irreparably changed. The lesson here is one of resilience. Michael's battle for his own dignity showed the world that even when the system fails, your personal integrity cannot be taken away.